So a few of you don't know who I am, so I'm just going to do a really quick brief bio about myself and my background and why we're here. So if you were to Google my name and type in Matt Astifan on Google, you're going to find dozens and dozens of pages of results about me. And you can go there and look at it later if you'd like to. You can also go into YouTube. You type in my name. I've optimized a ton of videos on YouTube as well that you can take a look at if you want to learn more about the stuff that I usually talk about. But what I want to talk to you about is stuff that you're not going to find on Google. And that is that I originally started my career in the film industry. I was inspired by the movie Pulp Fiction, and I was inspired by how the story was told in a non-linear sort of way. It was a different kind of movie. I was also about 14 or 15 years old when I watched this movie, and I shouldn't have been watching this movie. So, you know, it really, made me think this movie is really cool, because if my parents knew I was watching this movie, I'd probably get into trouble. And, it put me on a path to start to really enjoy film and storytelling, and I became very motivated around watching different movies, and I kind of grew up and learned a lot of my lessons around some of the most popular movies, such as Star Wars became my religion. I was inspired by even the movie American Beauty and Fight Club. I used to watch these movies over and over again. I've seen the Godfather trilogy, I swear to God, probably 12 times. And that's kind of what taught me about family. It was kind of weird, but movies is it is a great movie about family. But movies is what really inspired me and kind of drove me. I worked in the film industry. I was actually a props person in the film industry. I worked on some independent films as an art director. But what I really wanted to do was do more storytelling. What happened was, when I was working in the film industry, I realized that people who had worked in the film industry for a long time, over 10 years, typically they hated their job and they hated their life, because the film industry demands a lot of hours out of your day. And every time one movie ends, you're now hunting for the next project. And so there was this never-ending kind of, when is my next paycheck going to come? And then when you do get a gig, you are working a minimum of 12 hours per day, 5 days a week. And sometimes even 6 days a week. I work 20-hour days, right? And you just feel like death. When you have not gotten any sleep for several days in a row, like you actually feel like you are dying. And I realized that that's not the lifestyle that I wanted. At the time, the real estate industry was booming, and my friends were all becoming realtors, and I became a real estater. I used to call it a real estater because I didn't understand what a realtor and a real estate agent was. So everyone made fun of me, and my friend made me this as a joke. That's not a real mustache. That was my first flyer. I totally flopped and failed as a realtor. I sold one property. It was from my dad. And at the end of the year, I had over $30,000 in unsecured debt. This is credit card debt. It's not like I bought a property and had debt. I just had straight up credit card debt. And I went to my managing broker and I said, I'm broke. I don't have any real estate skills. I've got no sales skills. I've got no marketing skills. What should I do? At the time, I was in my early 20s, and he said, man, he's like, you're young. Why don't you go figure out this internet marketing stuff? And so I said, okay. It just so happened that a week prior to that, I had met a guy, an Indian guy with a really thick accent. He had just came from the US. He had just only been there for a few years. Prior to that, he had grown up in India, and he was starting an SEO company. And he was telling me about SEO. This is a week prior to this conversation. And he told me about SEO, and my first question was, is that legal? I had no idea about SEO or the fact that you could get a website to rank on Google. I had never even paid attention to that. So I went back to him later that day and I said, hey, can you teach me about this internet marketing stuff? So it just so happened he had just arrived in Canada, thick accent, not great communication skills, and he wanted to grow a company to sell websites and SEO. So he said, hey, why don't you help me sell websites and SEO, because that's what I need help with, and I'll teach you internet marketing. So I kind of became his apprentice. From there, I started getting mentoring from him, going to all these meetings, trying to sell SEO and websites. We did very well, actually, doing that. We did over $500,000 in revenue within 2 years, and that was just our first year starting. Then I started kind of venturing on my own, and that's kind of when White Family was born. But between that time, I started getting lessons and learning from mentors. Some people that I followed were Eben Pagan, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin. I watched lots of YouTube videos. I've watched thousands and thousands of hours of YouTube videos. I still do, to learn new strategies and new techniques all the time. I'm always learning. And I also got my hands on this program called Traffic Secrets 2.0. Anybody know what that is? Who knows what that is? One person. So Traffic Secrets 2.0 was the first big product launch. Everyone's familiar with Jeff Walker's product launch. Traffic Secrets was the first big one. It was the first one to do over $1 million. It was the one that made people in the information industry kind of open their eyes and realize that you could become a millionaire selling information and advice. Dan wrote this book called FU Money. So I first got a copy of FU Money in 2010 at the Canada Marketing Summit. It seems like the Canada Marketing Summit was something that kind of ignited the internet marketing community in Vancouver. It feels like all the kind of big players in the internet marketing scene today were all at this event, which is kind of strange looking back at it. A lot of the friends that I hang out with now were at this event. And at the event, anyone who's been to the Canada Marketing Summit, the model of the conference is that every speaker does a pitch, right? And then they, it's the back of the room kind of sales, right? And so we were at this event. I didn't know about the model of those types of events. Now I'm not a huge fan of them, but I was there just learning, and then every speaker was doing a pitch, and it was always like, oh gosh, like here's another pitch, and let's go get coffee now or whatever. But when Dan got up, Dan just ignited the whole audience. He had everyone's attention. And even when he was doing his pitch, he still had everyone's attention. It was actually cool the way that he had performed his entire talk. By the way, I didn't even realize, I was trying to find a photo from this Canada Marketing Summit. I didn't realize this whole talk is actually on YouTube, on the Canada Marketing Summit's YouTube channel, if you guys want to check it out. Did you know it was there? You knew? Okay. And so, really great talk. It was actually very interesting if you watch this. This is now, 6-7 years ago. Dan looks like he's like 20 years old. Very different. They're very different if you watch Dan here and you watch Dan now. It's very interesting to watching that yesterday. So that's when I first saw Dan. I was very captivated, and he was like a celebrity to me, right? I was like, this guy's so cool. I took my picture with him. I cannot find this picture. I've looked everywhere on my computer. Took a picture with him. He gave me his book. The next day, I went to Starbucks and I read the entire book. It blew me away. It was the first time I was learning about this information. So anyone else read FU Money and know what I'm talking about? Oh wow, cool. A lot of you. So you guys know what I'm talking about. So then a couple of years ago, I was doing a meetup. And you guys know, if anyone's been to an Internet Masterminds meetup, we go around the room, everyone gets 30 seconds, you say who you are and what you do. And so we're going around the room, and all of a sudden, Dan Locke was just sitting in the audience and stands up and he says, hey, I'm Dan Locke. I had not recognized him at all. And I was like, Dan Locke? It's like, you're my hero. And then after I said, hey, would you hang out afterwards and I could chat with you and see if you'd be interested to do a talk here at Internet Masterminds. So after he did, we chatted and he agreed to do a talk. It was the first time he had spoken in front of an audience in, I think it was like 3 or 4 years, right? And we packed the room, right? So this is when we were doing the events at Sweet Genius. There's over 100 people in this place. We're definitely over fire code. We've actually now moved to a larger venue. So this was the first time that Dan spoke at Internet Masterminds. And then Dan calls me a few weeks later. And, and he says, hey, Matt. He said, I'm going to start a meetup. It's called the Vancouver Entrepreneurs Group. And so, of course, my reaction is like, you're going to do what? So I was like, man, and on top of that, what he said, and I want you to promote it for me. And I said, what the hell? I said, so now this millionaire is coming in, he's getting on my turf, he's going to start his own meetup, and now my meetup is going to die. And he's calling me and saying, would you email your list and let them know about my meetup? I was like, why would I do this? And so I was kind of like, well, what's the mutually beneficial opportunity here? He's like, you can promote my events, and once in a while, I can promote your events. I'm like, but my meetup has 6,000 members. Yours doesn't have any. How does this work? And he goes, we're just gonna work together. I said, okay, whatever. So I thought Dan was a really cool guy. So, my first reaction was like, what the hell? But later on, I saw Dan, I'd started his meetup. It was doing really well. And this was his first event. It was packed. I think there was more than 200 people there. I tweeted about it, I Facebooked about it a little bit, but I also attended. I attended the event, and I was also, again, astonished and fully entertained while Dan was speaking. And I told Dan, I said, I would love it if you did a whole weekend workshop. I could just listen to you all day, I could listen to you all weekend, and there's not a lot of people who I would say that to. There's not a lot of people who I would spend an entire weekend with and learn from just one person. and I've been asking Dan to do that for a long time. That's kind of how this event came about, because for the last couple of years I keep telling Dan, we got to do a longer event. I want to listen to you all day long. And Dan has been consistent with his meetup, right? And he's actually inspired me to do even greater things with my meetup. You can see now he's done 43 meetups. He's only been around here since 2014. Doing 43 meetups. We've been around for about 60 years. We've done 300 meetups. So he's been consistent with producing events. And I thought he was going to do 1 or 2 events or a few events and then kind of bail, right? That's kind of what I didn't think that he was going to keep it up, but he did. And his events are great to go to as well, right? And so this was then, we ended up doing a second event together. It was actually here. This is pictures from this room as well. We did another event together. And again, this one also just blew me away. And so this time, Dan calls me up, right? And I answer the phone, I go, "What's up, Dan?" Right? And so now I'm excited. I really like Dan. And Dan had did this whole talk about his mentorship program. And I was really excited because I'm sitting in the back. I was the guy who promoted the event, and I'm sitting in the back like, I gotta sign up for this right now, right? And I was so excited. I was thinking about what I was gonna talk to him about. So we have this post-event call, and I bring it up. I say, "Hey, Dan, I was really interested in what you were talking about in your mentorship. Would you be willing to mentor me?" And he said, "Of course, I would love to mentor you." So we started working together. And we've been working together now for just about a year. And he's actually the one who helped me create the 4 Steps of Social Media Profits Bootcamp, the Instant Social Media Profits, and the Instant Sales System. So that all came about us doing a strategy session together. We also had Shane Gibson there. I had Shane Gibson also help me with this. So Shane ended up being a part of the entire program. And this generated tens of thousands of dollars for my business. And the most important part is that this all happened between November and December. I told Dan, I said, November, December is usually a slow time for my business because I'm usually in training and consulting. Once Christmas hits, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, it's like a dead zone, right? And so I'm usually not making a lot of money in December. And so I wanted to create something that would help me boost my revenues in a month that I usually don't make barely anything. And we accomplished this. We delivered 4 Steps of Social Media Profits in November. Then we started delivering Instant Social Media Profits in between December and January. And at the end of January, we did a live event for the Instant Sales Systems. We recorded everything, and now we have a product that we can continue to sell online. We also worked together to promote the latest launch of the Social Media Director program. Dan helped connect me with a promotional partner, put together a webinar, and did an entire promotion. Typically, I capped my Social Media Director program at only 16 people. He remodeled a little bit so there'd be less one-on-one support with this additional promotion that we did. We did the promotion. We ended up making, right there, it's now at $85,000. This was an about 10-day promotion. After all said and done and all payments are collected, it was over $100,000, actually $101,000 that we generated in 10 days. So working with Dan has been fabulous for me. And one thing was very interesting that I learned from Dan that I ended up implementing in my business that made huge results. When Dan works with his clients, he doesn't just charge a fee, he becomes a partner with those clients. And what he does is he earns a percentage of sales that he helps generate for that business, sometimes a percentage in growth of that business. And when he taught me that and when he spoke about that, a huge light bulb went off. Oftentimes I'm working with clients and we're generating hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. I wasn't getting a percentage of any of that. I was just getting whatever I charged up front, right? So I implemented that in my business. Now all the companies that I work with, I earn a percentage of all the sales that I help generate. In fact, when I build a sales funnel for a client, I will earn a percentage of all the sales that go through that sales funnel, regardless if I directly made it or however it happened. I built the sales process. I built the sales funnel that helps convert leads into sales. I take a cut out of all of that. So that was like the big insight that I got. It was just that one thing, and I'm expecting to earn an extra $200,000 by next year just from earning percentages on all the sales for all the clients that I've been working with, right? Huge insight, right? So it was a 1 or 2 hour talk. I learned a lot of things, but that was the big thing. That was the one that kind of went off in my head, and I realized that I need to implement it in my business, made a huge result. Excellent. So one thing that I really like about Dan and learning from Dan is that Dan has worked in a lot of industries, not only with the people that he's mentored or the clients that he's taken on, but Dan actually has a lot of successful businesses. It was a few years ago now when I was at the Canada Marketing Summit, he mentioned that he had a nail salon in Richmond, where you go and get your nails done. He has a real estate investment company in Hong Kong. He has a financial advising company in New Zealand. Right? He's had a multi-million-dollar info marketing business. He's actually had several. He sold business advice. He also has a website that teaches you how to be a ping pong champion. He's also done information marketing for people who sell hearing aids, so the hearing aid industry as well. So he's done a lot of marketing in the information marketing world. And so when I was looking for a mentor, that was the thing that really attracted me to Dan, was that he had experience in actual brick and mortar as well as the online. He's actually even had his own digital marketing agency as well. And because he had so much experience in info marketing, that was something that I was getting into. It was just another reason that I wanted to work with Dan. And I also, when I joined the Inner Circle last year and attending the Mastermind groups, it was really great. Is the people who are in the group are at a very high level, which I was very impressed by. I've joined other mastermind groups, I've joined other networking clubs as well, and it's not always that you'll see that everyone's at a very high level. There's a lot of business that goes on actually within the group. One person I got the opportunity to work with last Christmas was Wilson, who's just sitting over here. We put together the Vancouver Winter Wonderland. Anyone know about that or hear about that? We did that one together. I put together some marketing strategies that I've been using doing marketing for the coaching industry. And we actually put together this very similar strategies to sell vendor booths and tickets to this event. We ended up spending $3,300 on Facebook ads, and we did some PR and some promotions and that sort of thing. And at the end of it, we had generated over $250,000 just from the online campaign that we did together. They made a lot more money throughout their event, but that was just online that we were able to generate. And so that was a connection that came from the Inner Circle and just the other people that are in it. I've also worked a lot with Benson. We went to, we became ClickFunnels certified partners together last year. We actually went to Boise, Idaho together. I did training with Russell Brunson to learn more about how to build sales funnels. So I just wanted to share that with you, just my experience inside of the Inner Circle.